2014. The first item on the agenda where someone is not quite here yet, so if there's no objection, I'd like to go to item number 3. Item number 2, we're skipping. Dr. Stella will not be here this evening. So item 3 is an update from our assessor, Betsy Quist. Is there any objection?
No objection.
Thank you. Betsy?
Good evening, all.
Good evening.
How are you? So I'm here to give my monthly report for revaluation. And to start out on a good note, I'm done.
Congratulations.
Well, I'm done with the inspection side of it. There's obviously a lot more that goes into it. I'm happy to tell you that 3,211 properties actually were inspected interior exterior, which gave us a 87% rate, which is, for revaluation, that's really good. Tax collection, that wouldn't be so good, but for revaluation, that's pretty good. We had 480 properties that were all done exterior-wise and viewed, so that does keep us in compliance with the state of Connecticut. And then we have preliminary letters that I've been reviewing to go out. The estimated date for the first notices, the preliminary notices, is going to be the third week of December. We're aiming for the 17th of December, which will allow residents approximately 2 weeks to schedule hearings if they want to appeal their assessment, their informal appeals. They'll be done with the outside company, not with me. And we do have the informal dates. I can read them to you if you'd like. We have scheduled 2 late evening ones, 10 to 7, and we do have one Saturday. Out of the 6 that we have scheduled, we do have 2 additional days as backup that are scheduled in case we need them.
Great.
Vision Appraisal, the software company we use, there is a online scheduling software that they have provided for us, so that is how people are going to schedule their hearings. They can call if they need to, and they will also take phone hearings if somebody is out of the country, out of town, sick, relatives, whatever. So they will do that as well, and they will be handling all of that and then obviously turning it over to me. It's basically with a 2-man office and 3,600, we're not saying we're going to get 3,600 phone calls. It's just virtually impossible for us to man that. And so because they have the ability to do it, we've gotten the permission to have them do that for us. So I think that's it. Anybody have any questions?
I actually have a question. Did you want to go first?
Well, I just wanted to say what great work that is, Betsy, to have accomplished that much.
Thank you.
And we really appreciate it. It's great.
I'm exhausted.
Yeah, I'm sure.
When is the appeal period? From when to when? If you get the letters out on the 17th, they have 30 days to appeal?
They'll have 2 weeks to schedule their appeals. The appeals will start on the 5th of January. The 5th, the 6th, the 9th, the 10th, the 15th, and the 16th are scheduled days.
That's right on top of their holiday seasons. They may
Well,
not.
there is a method to that madness.
Okay.
Because when somebody receives a letter from the assessor's office, they generally throw it aside. When letters come around the holidays,
Right.
people tend to check their mail daily. And so they will then check their mail, maybe hoping to get a nice Christmas card from a relative or a Hanukkah card or however.
Yeah.
And so that around the holidays, believe it or not, you have more potential for people to read their mail on a daily basis than to put it in the corner and pile it for 2 weeks.
And you've done it this way in the past?
Yeah.
At this time of year?
Yeah.
Okay. Well, thank you.
Everybody does it this way. I mean, it's kind of the timing if you're in revaluation for towns. Some towns have already done their informal hearings. They did them and sent them out before Thanksgiving. We just
But they didn't have an 87% inspection rate.
I don't know that, but
Thank you.
Any other questions? Betsy?
Betsy, so other than those dates that are already pre-scheduled, is there another, if they get in touch with you, if a resident gets in touch with you, they can't make those dates, do you try to find a convenient time to do such a thing, if they want to come in?
Well, obviously, they always can come to me. Before the grand list is signed, nothing is, set in stone. These hearings are basically so that, again, I couldn't do 3,600 hearings. There is also an appeal process after the grand list is signed, which is you go to the Board of Assessment Appeals. So if you miss this, it's not like this is your only shot at it. You can go to the Board of Assessment Appeals, and they generally only meet 3 days on regular years, but then we do schedule extra days during revaluation years. You miss that, you are then out of luck, unfortunately. So hoping between the 6 and maybe the 8 scheduled informal hearings and the probably 6 Board of Assessment Appeals dates, somebody will be able to make one of them. And if not, as I said, you can always come and see me up till January 31st.
Anything else?
Thank you so much, Betsy.
Thank you.
Thanks, Betsy.
Are you ready? Okay. Next, Chief Marcucci and Deputy Chief Ray Stewart would like to give us some background on the life-saving awards that are going to be presented this evening. Literally, life-saving awards. Why don't you want to read from there, and then we'll grant the awards?
All right, on November 5th, the paramedic, Mike Mergansky, had brought to my attention a commendable act that had occurred here in Woodbridge. Based on that notification and the fact that in 2009, the town of Woodbridge was recognized as a heart-safe community by the Connecticut Department of Public Health, with the emphasis on early intervention, CPR, and notification of the EMS services, basically which saves lives. Because of this, we felt it was necessary to recognize these two individuals for their commendable act. On the evening of September 15th, 2014, both Mr. John Otto and Mr. John Arpaia immediately recognized an individual going into cardiac arrest. They immediately activated the emergency response system and commenced early CPR, which allowed time for the EMS to arrive and provide continued life-saving measures. Upon officers' arrival, Mr. Oda and Mr. Arpaia were performing chest compressions and ventilations on the unresponsive party. Upon arrival of the paramedic, the Lucas device was applied to the patient, providing mechanical chest compressions along with early defibrillation and advanced life support by the paramedics. During transport, the patient would subsequently return to spontaneous circulation and was awake before arriving at the local hospital. That as a result of those actions, it was brought to my attention that if Mr. Oda and Mr. Arpaia had not recognized the situation immediately and acted accordingly, that the party would probably not have survived. Based on that prompt and alert action, it is with extreme pleasure that the town of Woodbridge and the police chief and myself and the Woodbridge Police Department award Mr. John Oda and Mr. John Arpaia with the Life Saving Award.
Board members, if you want to join us here.
They wanted to.
Well, we got the paparazzi today.
John? Thank you. Thank you.
No, we got the mama
Yeah.
Very nice.
Okay. You want to hold it up for the picture?
Genetic.
Well, both of your training and putting it to good use was really absolutely terrific. Thank you both very much. Thank you, Chief.
Thank you.
So, believe me, this is the family joke.
We'll come back to order now, and... Yes, thank you. Thank you, Ray. Yeah. There's another item on the agenda that Ray can speak to, so if there's no objection, we'll move to item number 5, which is a request to authorize the first selectman to execute an application for an emergency management grant program in the amount of $4,800. Do you want to speak to that, please, Ray?
Well, the emergency management program grants is something that comes out every year. It's based on per capita. And you can get up to $10,000. Obviously, based on our population, we're guaranteed to get awarded the $4,800. We've applied it in the past. We've gotten equipment in the past, specifically looking for equipment. We pay for it. We got some computers for the emergency operations center over at the police department, and some other equipment. We bought cots in the past, but that's when we had actually concrete equipment that we wanted to buy. It just became easy in the last 2 years that it's okay to just apply for a portion of my salary, which about 25% is what we gear it at. And because of all the time that I actually spend with emergency management, we're allowed to do that. And basically, it's just a portion of my salary. We base it into the max $10,000, which awards us the $4,800. And hopefully that explains it.
So basically, it's a state grant.
It's a state grant.
Maxes out at $4,800.
For Woodbridge.
For Woodbridge, for whatever academic, and then it's to be used for emergency management services. And
Correct.
You head that up and we pay you, so a portion of it.
Exactly.
And that's okay under the grant.
Correct. It just makes it a lot easier to manage the grant for Woodbridge if we don't know what we want right now, and we can get the money up front that way, and then I can, Tony can put it in a special account, and if Human Services needs it, if the fire department needs it, if the police department needs it for any type of emergency
So we don't have
equipment.
to use it for your salary. Okay, I got it.
No, don't have to use it for salary.
Any other questions for Ray? If not, is there a motion to authorize the first selectman to execute the application?
So moved.
Thank you. Any other questions or discussion? If not, all those in favor? Aye. Thank you very much.
Thank you very much. Have a nice evening.
We're now at item number 4, which is the resolution with respect to the Small Cities Grant. Tony, do you want to explain that?
Sure. As you all are aware, we have a small cities program where the state awards the town. We've gotten, let's see, it was 407. We've gotten at least 2 $300,000 grants where we're awarded funds for rehabilitation to income-eligible individuals for their housing. And it's essentially an interest-free loan that is paid back when the house changes title. And the idea of the program is a revolving fund to keep reinvesting into other housing units so that it keeps a self-perpetuating fund. In addition to so when the house changes title, we get the funds back. We can either use it to give to another individual, or we can use it for certain eligible expenditures under the grant. And one of those is what we're applying for here, which is a bathroom or lavatory in the senior center on the bottom floor to provide better access for seniors. If you know where the bathroom is currently, it's a little bit of a walk to get to it.
There isn't one on that floor.
It's not.
correct?
You have to
They
go upstairs in the elevator, right.
Which is just,
So this provides, allows for that, because it's for a senior center and because of its location, allows for that expenditure. So that's our request.
Is there a motion to approve the grant resolution, which is included in the packet? Thank you.
Second.
Any other questions or discussion? All those in favor? Aye. Thank you.
Thank you.
Thanks, Tony.
Okay.
The next item is Ordinance Committee report. The Ordinance Committee met on Monday. That was Joe Dye, Susan Jacobs, and me, and Jerry Weiner was there. And we reviewed again the issue of the Code of Ethics. Attorney Weiner brought us a sample from another town, or a mixture of items that we're looking at to expand our Code of Ethics, and we're still looking at the question of appearance when someone who's on a board can appear before another board. We're looking at that more closely and what other towns do in that respect. And we've also taken up consideration of recommending a policy for the town on the uses of the town seal and facsimiles of the town seal, so that there aren't situations, or to the extent we can prevent situations, where something may look like an official town document when it isn't. But we didn't reach resolution on that. We're still doing additional research. Susan, Joe, you want to add
I
anything?
guess just for clarification, because it wasn't overly clear to me at the time, but seal meaning not necessarily the raised seal, but the logo, if you will, the facsimile
Right.
meaning the town logo as well.
Exactly. Right, the town seal is the actual seal is in the possession of the town clerk, but it is possible to have copies of it. Thanks, Joe.
So there's something that's appearing to be coming from the
Well,
town.
you know,
Bridge,
for instance, if
example.
someone goes on our website, for instance, and you can grab the seal, you can put it on a letter and send it out.
Okay, yeah.
To make yourself look like it's
If you're an official
officially
agency of
from,
the town of Woodbridge, I think that's a very good idea.
not my idea.
No, I mean,
Thank you.
guys,
Well, we
the four of you, good idea, okay.
Susan, you want to add anything?
No, I think that's it.
Okay, thank you. Since it's not 7 o'clock yet, we will hold off public comment and move to Administrative Officer, Director of Finance
Okay.
report. Tony.
Thank you. A report through November of 2014, and the results a budgetary surplus of about $70,000, and that projects our fund balance at the end of the year of $4.2 million, or 9.1% of the budget for that year. Our revenues are pretty close to budget at this point, and there are no large variances for me to report. In our expenditures, Waste Management has a anticipated surplus. There's a slight deficit in tipping fees, about $18,000, but it's a $38,000 surplus in recycling, which is going to result in a surplus of about $20,000 in that department. Employee benefits have a surplus. Also, there's a deficit of $25,000 in height and hypertension claims and $19,000 in workers' compensation. But we are doing well in retiree health care in particular, in our other health care accounts, and so there should be a surplus of about $60,000 in benefits. So those are some of your highlights for the current year.
Thank you. Any questions for Tony?
We used to have the CCW in there. Is that, we're not carrying that forward anymore, or is that?
Well, in terms of what, the ones from the Casper ones, or?
Yeah, I know, I should have brought it, but we always used to have the differences in the expenses and the revenues from the CCW.
Actually, I do have a report on that, which I actually have them all.
Separately.
Yeah,
Okay.
yeah.
Anything else? There are no tax refund requests?
No.
So we'll go to funding requests, of which I believe there are two.
There are two, right?
The first is line item transfer number 1415-06 in the amount of $13,720, and this is for equipment needed to allow the town to connect to the Nutmeg network, which we've discussed. Tony, do you want to address that?
Sure. We had originally applied for a grant for the entire amount, which we were hopeful that we were going to receive. We thought we were going to receive, actually, based on our initial conversations, but we did not receive the whole amount. We received $6,000, and therefore there's a shortfall of $13,000, which would allow us to buy equipment that we would use to connect to the Nutmeg network. So this provides us with greater sharing of regional resources, municipal collaboration, and also with an additional high-speed network internet connection for Town Hall and for all the campus buildings.
And do you want to just mention where the money is coming from?
Sure. It's from two completed capital projects. One is at the Board of Ed, which is an installation of or upgrade of their phone system, and the other is from some minor repairs at the library.
Thank you.
So they're completed projects that we had remaining funds in, so that's where I transferred them from.
I'll move acceptance of line item transfer number 1415-06. Is there a second?
Second.
Any other questions or discussion? All those in favor?
Aye.
Aye.
The next item is,
There's another transfer.
yeah, line item transfer 1415-07 in the amount of $1,312.50, and that is with respect to a police department vehicle. Tell me what it's
Sure, the police sold the Ford Expedition and received $1,312.50 from auction site. And so the request is to use those funds to offset their, or to add to their budget for their vehicle purchases, which is how we budget for it in the capital budget process, is they use these funds to offset or to add to their budget. So, but you actually have to transfer the money that they receive. You can't just use it. You have to authorize that, so.
So moved.
Okay.
Thank you. Any questions or discussion? All those in favor?
Aye.
Thank you. Now, Country Club of Woodbridge, the first item is the pool fees. I think we're holding that.
That's,
Is
yeah,
that-
that's on
yeah.
hold until we have more information on that. So that's off the agenda.
Next is a financial update.
Yes, I have that to hand out. There you go. Okay. So what I did for this financial update was put together, this is our first year of the town having expenditures for Country Club of Woodbridge. There are several different areas in the budget, so I thought it would be helpful to put all of them together in one spot to see on a calendar year, which is essentially the season for golf and pool, how we did financially. So if you follow through the spreadsheet here, the first section are revenues, and those are essentially pool revenues, and there's some estimated golf revenues of about $23,000 from Casper for this past season. That's currently their estimate. So you'll see there's a total revenues generated of $136,000. And then it breaks down the facility charges and the golf and the pool and then benefits. So you can see how much each one costs. And so just to highlight that, the facility was $130,000, and most of that's in electricity, oil heating, water. A lot of that's utilities, as you can see. And there were some maintenance charges earlier in the year, specifically related to getting the facility ready for the pool. If you remember, we had some charges there. And so you'll see the repair and maintenance is a little high there. Then there's $195,000 for Billy Casper. You can see that. And then there's the pool results. So the pool ended with $109,000 in expenditures, and you can see up above $113,000 in revenues. So those were the pool revenues and expenditures for the operation of the pool. There was an additional $5,400 in benefit charges for the wages that were associated with the pool. And so the total expenses were $439,596. So you could see the sort of the revenues over expenses, or the deficit, or however you want to calculate it, is $303,000 more expenses than we had revenues. Now in this particular year, those were budgeted for in the budget. They were planned for and they were anticipated, so we were able to budget for those. Contrast that to the previous 2 years, which I highlighted below, where the town had risk and operations of the golf course. If you total those up, that's $811,000, and those were had to come off our fund balance, which is a lot different than actually budgeting. So the 2014 was through the mill rate and through the budget, but the prior 2 years were off of our fund balance, which is essentially our our reserve. So you can see the sort of the difference where the risk had changed. We had assumed a lot of risk in those other 2 years, and you can see what happened. We had originally budgeted, in both of those years, it was there was not a loss was not budgeted for. So whereas in 2014, that's roughly what was budgeted. It's a little higher, but.
So budgeted or no budgeted, we lost $300,000.
But yeah, but these are actual dollars.
Yeah,
I just wanted everyone to get an idea of where the money was
Right,
sort
I
of
guess
coming
my
from.
other question is, these are actual cash flow dollars
Correct.
that were spent by the town of Woodbridge,
Correct.
including
This does include debt service on the property.
no debt service.
Right.
It includes if we sent maintenance folks over there.
Does not. I have that information.
Over there, stuff like that.
It doesn't include it if it's in kind. If it's in kind, meaning we would have paid it anyway through regular wages, it's not in here. It would only be in here if it was something extra, but I do have that information.
Is there any augmentation to this?
I do have that information, just, so I wanted to give you also an idea of sort of how much time is spent there. And this past year, the three departments that are primarily, you would think that would be involved would be Parks, Public Works, and Building Maintenance. And aside from administrative, the Parks Department spent hardly any time at all. There was just a little bit of tree work that was required in the last winter. It's a few hours, it wasn't really all that much. Public Works does plowing mainly of the lot, so that would be whenever there's a storm, it probably takes an hour or so to plow the lot out, just so you can get a fuel truck in there. The year before, there was some cart path work, but we didn't do any this past year. And building maintenance is where most of the time is spent, and that could be 5 to 8 hours a week, just checking, because it's an old building. There's a lot of monitoring and a lot of making sure, pipes aren't leaking, pipes aren't freezing, especially in the winter when there's no one in the facility. So those are sort of where a lot of our hours are spent in that facility.
Tony, I really just have to thank you for this, because it's, first of all, I can read it, I can see it, because a lot of times they're very tiny, and it's just spelled out very easily, revenues, expenses, and the bottom line. So whether we like it or not, it's easy to read, and it's understandable for a non-business person, so thank you very much for doing this. It's great, very helpful.
So
Any other questions?
We don't have any, we can't quantify whether there's an augmentation to these numbers or not based on.
It would be like, so if there's 5 or 10 hours a week that's spent over at the facility, that would be 5 or 10 hours, you'd be doing something else. But it's not an additional cost, so to speak.
It's not overtime.
It's not overtime.
It's not an additional.
I mean, I quantified the dollars just so you can see it's about $10,000. If you take, 8 hours a week times the hourly rate times with a benefit charge.
I guess so.
It's about $10,000.
So long as we're doing all our other work and everything at the same time.
Right.
Can I just get a clarification? So in the off-season, we're plowing because of emergency vehicles?
Correct.
And,
To get the,
what did you say, fuel?
to fill the oil.
I gotcha, okay.
Right.
All right. So you have to keep it clear for that.
Right, they do a path to the oil
I gotcha.
tank.
I just didn't hear what you
Right,
said.
yeah.
Anything else? Thank you, Tony.
Okay.
Thank you very much.
Okay.
Thanks, Tony.
Next item is update on the Crestview Pond.
Yeah.
Tony?
So, this is from, I guess, the last meeting, the Crestview Pond update. There are essentially two areas at the Crestview Pond that are of concern to residents. The first is by 8 Crestview, and that's a trench that goes to the pond that has had some sediment buildup, and the town has installed some sediment traps to help to collect that sediment, and it still can use a little more. So in the normal course of things, as we would in Public Works, what we've decided to do is install a few more sediment traps and to clean out the existing traps that exist and clean out the sediment that is built up so that we can stop that issue from happening. Would be in the normal course of Public Works activities, and I'm hopeful that that'll clear that up. Okay. The other issue is with 20 Crestview, and that's a 400-foot channel, essentially, yeah. And it's, we've had our environmental engineer, Bob Criscola, look at that, and he had made a recommendation to remove about 1 foot of silt in the channel, the entire length of the channel. And that's about 400 feet. And so we have about $10,000 budgeted for that purpose. I mean, that's sort of how much we have budgeted at the moment for that. I'm not sure how much it will cost, but.
Well, I saw some
Excuse me,
estimates in the
that-
package.
Excuse me, so, yeah, that's what we had
So-
budgeted, and the idea there was that we expect the cost of it to be more than that, but we thought that the town, subject to approval by the Board of Selectmen, would offer to pay $10,000 or half the cost. And one of the issues here is that we don't want to set a precedent that we conduct this activity for private property, but there has been some history with respect to Crestview Pond that led us to think that some contribution would be in order. Now, the last we heard is that the homeowners were not interested in that offer, but that's where we were. Joe?
Well, no, well, my original comment was just, I saw some estimates in here. You know, that's number one. Number two is, you mentioned some history and things like that, and so I, for one, being new on the board, I know George and his folks have been here a couple times, but I know there is a history. I don't fully understand this entire thing. I know there's
It's murky,
well,
no pun intended.
it probably
Pun
is,
intended,
no
yes.
pun intended.
Yeah.
But it's murky enough for me that I don't feel I understand this situation well enough to vote. I mean, I'd like to hear some cohesive presentation from the folks and our position, you know,
Sure.
cohesively stated and reasonably stated. I wouldn't know.
Right, and
That's just
we were
my
not looking
opinion.
for a vote tonight. This was
Okay.
really an update to let
But
you
at some
know
point
where.
in time, we have to kind of move it forward, right? So
Yep.
what would the plan be to try to understand this situation?
I have a question that sort of follows up on that. It's my understanding that there's a homeowners association. Are they not active at all?
Apparently they are, and.
Do they carry insurance of any kind? Does it cover anything? Is there, I mean, is that who we're dealing with, or are we dealing with the two property owners where there's an issue?
It was our impression that we were dealing with representatives of the homeowners association, but I can't say that for sure.
Okay.
But those are very good questions, and
I
we
doubt
should.
whether they had insurance, I don't know for sure, but
Right.
no one has ever mentioned that they put a claim into their insurance
How
company.
many families are in the homeowners, or how many of Crestview, or are they, is it?
It's a long street. I went
Yeah,
and drove by
But they may
it.
not all be on the pond.
Oh, it's only those on the pond that are in the
Okay.
homeowners? Well, that's the,
Well,
to Joe's
I'm not
point,
sure.
that's part of what we don't know.
Right.
Okay,
I don't know too much.
I don't know, I don't either.
Other than we have some residents who
Right.
feel the town needs to step up and do something. I understand the black and white of our position, which is, well, what you just mentioned.
right.
Anything other than that, I wouldn't know how to judge whether that's reasonable or unreasonable, you know?
So I'll suggest that we ask Bob Criscolo to come to the
That's a
next
good
meeting.
idea.
and
Yeah, that's a good
He's
idea.
the best one to really explain the
That's a good idea.
situation.
If I could just,
Okay.
one little, so, and then at that time would probably be the appropriate time, if you can let us know the update. I understand that there was some offer made, but I'm just wondering, and it wasn't necessarily accepted, I'm just wondering where we are. Is there ongoing negotiation, is there?
No, no.
There's not
Because
gonna be another meeting?
it was just
no?
no, and that was that. We haven't heard anything. But subsequent to that, George Gearing was here to, he explained his position,
Right.
you know, to us, but that's all.
But at this point,
But
there's no other
there's nothing on the table
talk
at all.
scheduled for town?
No.
Okay, thank you.
Anything else on that? Okay.
Nope, that's it.
Thank you, Tony. So we'll follow up. Next item is the water at the animal control facility. Good evening.
Good evening, my name is Joe Sanavasi. I am an environmental scientist with Advanced Environmental Interface, and I've been asked to, on behalf of the town, to assess the well water quality at the animal control facility and to develop or identify some options to address the issues that we find there. And I would like to start out by saying that I've been studying contamination and remediation of contamination and working in that field for over 30 years. And I pay particular attention to the existing well that currently provides water to the facility, as well as a new well that was recently installed. I sampled both wells, and I have some information I'd like to share with you. And I'll go over that information to first explain my findings, and then I'll also go over some information to explain how I came up with the options to address what we found. So if I may, I'll pass these out. What I'll do is I'll kind of talk you through this table. In the left-hand column, there is a list of the things we tested for. They are various minerals, various what we could call contaminants if they are present above certain levels. But a lot of these parameters that we tested for are naturally occurring. They are found in all types of well water and groundwater in Connecticut. The key here is that there are what the State Department of Public Health considers acceptable numbers, thresholds, or criteria for these. And those numbers are listed in the second from the right column, under Connecticut DPH criteria. And I'll try not to get too technical with this. The second column, which is labeled Old Well, the column there indicates the test results for a sample of water that I collected from the existing in-use well. The next two columns are labeled New Well, first sample and second sample. Those columns represent the laboratory analytical results, the test results, for samples of water taken at various times after pumping the new well. The first sample was taken after about 20 minutes of pumping. The second sample was taken after about 4 hours of pumping that well. I wanted to see if the water quality changed with pumping. The critical thing to keep in mind is that the existing well is about 165 feet deep or 160 feet deep, depending on what information you look at. The new well is about 400 feet deep. It's a deeper well. It was installed, as I understand it, in an attempt to get cleaner water. And I'll get into that in a very short time. The important thing with this table is that of all the parameters listed, many of them, the good news is many of them are well within acceptable levels, and others were non-detected at all. And starting from the bottom up, volatile organic compounds, VOCs, not detected at all. Those compounds include gasoline constituents, degreasing solvents, gasoline additives, fuel oil constituents, and things like that. None of those were detected in either well in any of these three samples. So that's very good news, because if they were present, we would have a different approach to providing clean water at the end. Okay, so we looked for all these to identify what kind of treatment system might be necessary, and also what the sequence of treatments might need to be to get the end result, water that is not affected by the various parameters that are on this list. To sum it up very concisely, the only problems we found in the well water from either well were due to the presence of sodium and chloride and a parameter called TDS, which is a total dissolved solids number. It represents all of the minerals that could be present in the water that would dissolve, much like if you would put a spoonful of sugar in your coffee. Well, that sugar, when it's first in the water, you can see little clumps of sugar or little granules of sugar, but over a short period of time that dissolves and you can't see it anymore. But sure enough, when you drink the coffee, you could taste it. You are really tasting the dissolved portion of the sugar in the water. If you put 1 teaspoon of sugar or 2 teaspoons or 3, your coffee gets sweeter with the more sugar you add. So the same thing happens with these chemicals or these minerals or these salts. The more you add per container of water, the saltier, I guess in this case, the saltier the water would become. Okay, so the key is the top 3 items. The sodium chloride and TDS values are above acceptable levels in the raw water, the untreated water. This was water taken before any treatment system, right out of the well, right out of the tap, before any treatment at all. So again, the good news is a lot of these minerals and chemicals that we tested for are not problematic whatsoever. Levels are well below acceptable criteria for drinking water for infants and people of any age. The criteria here, of course, are based on human health exposure. The criteria are not based on animals, sustaining on the water. However, in all the research I did, I couldn't find acceptable criteria for animals. Most of what I did read was that if the water quality is suitable for a human, especially a child or an infant, the water is expected to be suitable for animals of any size, cats, dogs, fowl, whatever. So again, based on these results, we want to focus on treating the salt water problem. As part of my assessment, I also tried to identify where the salt is coming from. My initial thoughts were possibly salt water from seawater intrusion because we're not that far from Long Island Sound, and the West River is tidal. So the West River does have a saline component to it. The wells are in fractured bedrock. Basically, the rock is cracked with a lot of spider web type cracks, and seawater is denser than fresh water, and it sinks deeper through the rock cracks. And I think that's why we see here that the deeper well has higher salt levels than the shallow well. Salt water drops deep through the cracks and into the well column, the water column, whereas the shallower well contains more of a mixture. The mixture contains more fresh water than salt water, and as you go deeper, you get a little more salt water mixed with the fresh water. So we have commingled water. This is by no means salt water. It's slightly saline water, as the note in the last column shows, third from the top, based on the TDS number. But nonetheless, these values of sodium and chloride in TDS are problematic for many reasons. From the health perspective of drinking the water untreated, and also they provide issues, or they cause issues with plumbing fixtures and washing machines. They become very corrosive. As you know, salt does a number on your car, the undercarriage of your car, and a lot of things that are made out of metal. So these need to be addressed, or should be addressed, should the wells be put, continue to be used, or the new well be put in service. I think I'll leave the discussion of this table as is for now, and if we have questions, we can discuss them later. I have a second table I'd like to provide, which shows a summary of all the historical data that I've been provided since, I believe, 2004. Right, since April of 2004. And
They do, just get into the next.
Well, I wrote that down, but I didn't know.
2 pages.
Joe, just to be clear, 'cause there were some questions here, this first chart you gave us is untreated water, just straight
Correct.
from the well.
Straight from the well,
Okay.
before going through the treatment system that exists in the facility right now.
Right.
Right out of the tap, untreated. Now, the second table that I gave you, the 2-page table, as I mentioned, has the results of chemical testing, laboratory analysis results back to 2004. The second row at the top of the page indicates whether it's raw water, which is untreated water, whether it's treated. I would indicate that by saying after softener, because the treatment system, first of all, consists of a water softener, followed by a reverse osmosis system. Both types of filters, we'll call them filters, remove different kinds of chemicals from the water supply. Okay, so instead of going through all this information, because I'm sure we want to get through this as reasonably quick as possible, the key that I've highlighted here is that the 3 columns on page 1 that I've highlighted in yellow, that's really what I want to focus on for now. Those 3 columns represent the results of treated water from the existing well that has gone through the water softener and the reverse osmosis system. The key is that in the 3 yellow columns, every one of the laboratory test results is well within any Connecticut Department of Public Health threshold or criterion for drinking water. The water is certainly potable after going through the water softener and the reverse osmosis system. Unlike the untreated water that I mentioned to you in Table 1, and unlike some of the untreated water shown on this Table 2, but the key to this table is the 3 columns that I've identified with yellow highlighting. Now, that tells me that the water softening and reverse osmosis treatment systems are effective in providing water at the tap that would be acceptable for any use, human or otherwise. So based on those results, I have worked on several options to address the water quality issue with the high sodium and chloride and TDS numbers that you see on Table 1 on the first page that I gave you. The options that I have come up with, and I'm not sure which option you folks will prefer, but there are options of running the municipal water supply to the facility. Okay, that would be option 1. The second option would be to keep the existing water treatment system in place. However, that provides potable water to only one sink in the facility. Okay, that sink, as I understand it, is to be used primarily for providing water for the animals' bowls, the dog bowls. Okay, the third option is to use bottled water for that same purpose and also for the staff of the facility. The fourth option is to keep the existing system as it is and maintain it and have it tested by a third party on a quarterly basis to ensure it continues to work as the results show it can work. It's certainly capable of doing the trick at that one sink. And the last option, which is kind of an in-between option, will be to enhance the system that's there right now by expanding it to provide enough water to the entire facility for all uses. For drinking water, for washing machines, for washing down the floors of the kennels, and that would eliminate it would eliminate all the issues with potential corrosion of fixtures, washing machines, and whatnot caused by the untreated water being used in the washing machines. Probably one of the most important things for you folks would be, well, what is the cost of these options? And I know from the information provided to me by the town that there was a cost estimate provided for running the municipal water supply all the way to the animal control facility, and I understand that cost to be around $140,000. Okay, I understand that about 1,000 feet or a little more than 1,000 feet of water main has to be installed to bring the water main from, I believe, about Lunar Drive up to the facility. And I understand that cost is just the cost to bring the water main to the front of the property. Then there would be a connection cost from there, which I would estimate would be around $10,000 as a ballpark number. The second cost estimate that I've come up with would be the middle ground option, which would be to enhance the existing system to provide water for the entire facility, much like running this, the municipal water service would do. The cost of that, based on the information I have right now, would be less than $50,000. I don't have a hard number on that yet because we need to gather some more information. The most important part of which is determining how much water usage the building has. Right now, we don't know how much water they use. So my thought was to have a water meter installed at a cost of a few $100s to log the readings from the water meter over a period of time, maybe a week, 2 weeks, 3 weeks, to see what kind of water usage the facility has. And based on that, we could determine the size of the filter system that needs to go in to provide potable water for the entire building. It seems like a logical approach to at least do the water meter study. so that an appropriately sized full building system can be installed. And we would also know not only the cost of that system, but the maintenance of that system and the footprint that that system would require. Where would we fit it in the building? I understand space is at a premium, and I've had some folks come down with me. We've looked at the available space, and it looks like there should be enough space in the building without taking much, if anything else, away from what's there already. We certainly don't want to take out another kennel or do anything like that, but we can make use of vertical and horizontal space to install this filter system. And you should know, too, that the folks who I've met and discussed the system with are some of the best reverse osmosis system manufacturers and installers that you'll find anywhere. They've been doing this for many, many years. They put these systems into daycare facilities, into schools, into healthcare facilities. They are very, very reputable, and they would do a really good job. They actually deal with water that is almost all salty water. They put in desalination plants to knock down concentrations that are 10 to 20 times higher than what we see here. So the opportunity for installing one of these systems is very well in line with providing an appropriate water supply for the entire building to provide water for the staff, the animals, and also for all the uses in the facility. You would no longer have to worry about the plumbing fixtures being corroded, the washing machines being corroded from the salt water, and all of that. So it certainly is an option to consider. If there are any questions about the well configuration, I could get into that, but I really don't want to take up your time with anything that I don't need to. So I guess I'll ask if there are any questions. I'd be glad to help answer them.
I wanted to ask you about the enhanced system. That would, it would change although the water quality you describe here and the old well is potable based on using the old system. Are you saying if we had the enhanced system, not only would it be better for the fixtures, it would also reduce these numbers, if that's relevant? If it's potable now, does it matter, or is it really for the non-corrosiveness of the pipes and
That's a good
and the
question.
fixtures?
It's mostly for the non-corrosive attack on the pipes and on the washing machines and on anything else, metal that the salt water may come in contact with.
Right.
Because the system in place right now can only yield a very small amount of water, because it was designed to provide just drinking water, I understand, for one sink. And it no way could provide enough water for the entire facility. Mm-hmm. And also, the system, the output of that system needs to be enhanced a little bit to add a little bit of flavor to the water. We would add some calcium to the water to add flavor to it, because right now it's almost like, it would be almost like drinking distilled water you would use in an iron, which has almost no taste. It's very bland. So the last treatment part of it would add a little bit of flavor to the water to make it more palatable.
And also, on these, the highlighted columns you have, with respect to the chloride and sodium, the numbers go up from September to, in 2012 to 2014. Is that significant, the changes in the numbers? I really don't, I have no sense
That's a
of
good
what
question,
that...
too. No, those numbers are all
That's
within
easy.
what we expected, because when we deal with groundwater or well water, we get fluctuations in levels of sodium, chloride, and other minerals on almost a weekly basis. It depends on how much rainfall there is. If you're in a drought or in a very heavy rain period, these chemical concentrations will change almost daily. So these swings that we see are well within what would be expected and don't represent anything that I would be concerned about.
Thank you.
You're
Any
welcome.
questions?
Yes.
Joe?
So, the old well treated is potable, but insufficient to service our needs, correct? So we drilled a new well hoping we would get just potable water without having to treat it. Is that why we drilled a new well? I think, right?
Yeah.
It could be the only reason. So we did that and came up with a well with less potable, if you will. Or
Higher levels,
higher
yes.
levels.
Right,
So-
more salty.
So, have we reached, are there other wells in the area that are potable? I guess my question is, do we stop at these two wells? Are we satisfied that with these two wells, we could never find potable water there, that we don't have to
Yes,
spend all this money?
Right. My opinion is that anywhere on that small piece of land you put a well, you're going to find salty water at any depth. And my thought is that with 2 wells now, my goal would be to plumb both wells together. Use the deeper well first, because that being 400 feet deep holds about 600 gallons of water just in the well itself, whereas the other well holds about a quarter of that, so about 150 gallons of water. Use the deep well because it's a bigger reservoir of water. Either well water quality is treatable with the system I mentioned and even with this system here. So use the big well, and if that happened, and that well provides about 10 gallons per minute right now. The old well provides about 7.5 gallons a minute. So use the higher yielding well, which has more of a reservoir in it, and we're less likely to have pressure problems in the building and less likely to run out of water. And then if that water level got so low, there would be a trigger that would kick on the second well. Both wells would go through the same treatment system. It would be like one pipe coming into the treatment system, but there would be an actuator, an activator, that would kick on one well when the other well provided insufficient water for the facility, which you might need in the summertime if they're washing a lot of things outside, which they aren't doing right now because of how cold it is. So we would use both wells.
I have a couple questions.
Sure.
To that point, and the water pressure level, I'm assuming any larger system we put in to do the whole building is going to reduce the pressure of the water. It's certainly not going to increase the pressure level. It would probably, if anything, decrease the level of pressure that we get right now, correct? If we went to a
Actually, we
larger
looked into
system?
that, and we would put in more efficient, better pumping systems on the bench top, on the countertop than what's there now, and they will actually alleviate the pressure problem that's there now.
Okay.
I've been guaranteed that.
So going back to a couple of questions I have.
Sure.
You know, I don't think it's as stark and as black and white as 140,000 to extend the water line and 50,000 for a new system, because I think they both have areas that would affect that. I'm assuming if that water line had to be extended, maybe we would, or the water company would, or the town would contact the people who may be able to add themselves to that line. They may want to add themselves to that water line and may alleviate some of our costs if they did.
Sure.
Because there's other businesses between where we would start and end. So I would want to know if there was interest from those businesses down there, which might help us alleviate some of that cost. I'm assuming that the water line, if it was extended, the best water we can get would be by extending that water line, not have to fool with the well to treat it, but basically to get it from the extended water line of the city. Is that?
Well, certainly the water provided by the Regional Water Authority would always be potable and not require treatment. Whether it's better water quality or not, that's arguable, and I'm not here to discuss that. Some people hate chlorinated water. Some people won't drink water because it has trihalomethanes, which are carcinogens. Well water doesn't, so.
But it would be safe.
It would be potable as deemed by the Department of Public Health, yes.
And the other reason I think that it's a little bit of a gray area, I'm assuming that you kind of threw a number of maybe around 50,000. But once we actually have the system in, there's an upkeep, there's buying the salt, there's maintenance. I'm assuming the larger, even though if it was city water, we'd be paying for the water that we're taking in, I'm assuming the cost is higher to maintain this system yearly, annually, and pay for the salt or whatever we use to.
It could be. I don't know that right now because we don't know the water usage requirements yet. That was part of putting the water meter in so we can determine what the maintenance cost would be on an annual basis. So there no doubt is a cost to maintain any well filter system. Just
Yeah,
like
also
it
the
in
life expectancy of the tanks themselves. I mean, I have a home system that basically, based on, well, my pH is a little low as well, so it's making 8 to 10 years is all it's making. So I'm assuming, unlike with the city water, we would probably face at one point at least changeover of some of the tanks.
Some of the components would need changing over time, yes. But the system would be designed to handle salt water.
Mm-hmm.
So instead of putting in a brass pump, it would be a stainless steel pump. Instead of a metal tank, it would be a plastic tank. So this stuff is all worked into these systems because, as I mentioned, these folks do desalination plants for schools and things like that, which have a much higher water demand than here. And of course, there is always some component that will fail over time, which will not happen with the city water, obviously, yes.
It seems to me we need a little bit more information specifically the water meter. And what did you say the cost of that was, and how long would you do the testing for?
I think it's a few $100s to do the
Okay.
water meter installation, and then we would need to kind of
And how
log
long
the
would
water
that data
for
have to be gathered?
maybe a few weeks.
Okay.
I would think 3 weeks should be enough,
Okay.
certainly no more than a month. And if we see a very regular pattern of water usage, maybe a week would be enough. It's the big swings that we have to watch out for. Obviously, you can plan for the
Well,
average.
it kind of depends on how many visitors they have.
Exactly,
Friends that
yes.
stop in and,
Yes, that's true, yes.
waiting for a home.
Yes.
Okay.
I have a question, it doesn't implicate Joe, but we can't make this decision on our own, can we? Don't we have other towns that are involved in this?
If we're going to make a major expenditure, we would definitely talk with the other towns and see
Yeah,
if they
so-
contribute,
right.
definitely.
Yes.
Or what they're,
Yeah.
But we don't
Yeah.
need their votes, the agreement, the town, it's a town building, the town makes the decision, we would ask them to contribute.
yeah, but suppose they say no.
Well, then they-
Exactly,
then
we
they're
would
out.
want to know.
I mean, that doesn't make
But
any sense.
we could go ahead without them, but we might not want to. Also, just one other data point, I think, Tony, did you get a chance to check what we spend on bottled water
It's,
now?
Yeah, it's probably $150 to $200 a month.
On the bottled water that we're
Yeah.
bringing in,
Yeah,
and they physically have to move it in and out.
right.
I just have one small question. You talked about, and obviously, I've been down there a few times, and space is a definite issue. Would it be possible, if a new system was put in, a larger system for the entire building, would it basically be possible to remove from the area that's taken right now with the current system and fit within that area, or within reason of that, or
We
or do you
believe
need a
so,
much larger
yes.
space?
Yes, we believe so.
Okay.
And another option is always a small shed to put it into and keep it separate from the building. I mean, it's something that we'd have to discuss, should you folks decide to go with that option.
So you don't feel like it would take a much larger space than it's already taking now, this is the
No,
current system?
no, because again, we don't want to take, we wouldn't want to take space away from them. They don't have much space to begin with. We would stack things vertically along the walls and horizontally instead of putting everything in a line. I talked to the folks who were with me, and they indicate that we can do things to fit pretty much in the same footprint around that corner, in that L-shaped corner, where the furnace is, on the other side of the wall. From there around the corner, there should be enough space to put in what we need.
Anything else? Thank you very much.
You're welcome.
Thanks, Joe.
You're very
I
welcome.
think, for next steps, I think the meter idea, it seems to me, we want to
Right,
know this. That's
absolutely.
information that we need to know. In terms of any substitute for the bottled water, if we're going to do anything of significant cost, we'll definitely talk to the other members of this district, or of the animal control. And Tony, we wouldn't be doing this out of this year's budget.
Well, we don't have the
would
funds in this year's budget clearly, so we'd either have to do a supplementary transfer or you'd have to put it in the budget for next year, one or the
So,
other.
probably part of the budget process.
So what about to Tony's point about, is there any way to investigate
Can do that.
the affordability of extending that?
Yep.
You know, whether there are other
The
folks that
neighbors.
would
We can
like
certainly
to
do that, sure.
contribute to that?
Yep.
Difference.
Yeah, very good idea.
It's a good idea, yeah.
And just to follow up one little point, we've talked about in the past about seeking out a possible other town that might have interest that we could join up with, whether it's, I think Orange was Banter and Seymour and Prospect. Have we done any of that, and maybe is this the right time to seek out, to find out if one of these towns does have interest in, if it would be worth our while to take them in at a time where we can use more resources?
I think every time is a good time to be exploring that. I've spoken to Orange and Milford, they're together now, and there isn't interest, but we can revisit that and see about other towns as well. I think we had spoken to Shelton when they wanted to just
Right.
board the dogs.
Right.
And we can certainly revisit that.
And my last question, just to Tony, is, earlier in the year, you and I were down there, and there was discussions here about budget going forward, some of the needs they had that were more immediate. There was a fencing issue along the side, and you and I saw the tarp and
Right.
the cover for the outdoor was needed, and maybe some roofing issues. Has any of those concerns been addressed? Have we actually done some of that work, or if not, is that in the
They're
plans?
actually in the capital budget.
I remember that. So
Yeah.
is
Roof
any-
is in the capital budget, I
Yeah.
think.
The
a
roof was,
proposal.
yeah, and I
I
believe-
saw that
The
last
fence,
week.
right?
The
along the-
fences
Yeah.
also, and also the replace the
They're in
tarp
there.
issue. All three of them are in the
We
budget.
still are on plan and on
Correct.
track to get those things done.
Right.
Brad presented them.
Right.
Yeah, he did talk about it, I just didn't know if we were still on track to get, okay, great.
Joe's listening to us.
Oh, Joe, you can go home, have dinner. Thank you very much.
Very informative.
Okay, next we'll go to public comments. Cheryl, you look ready. Your public comment?
I have no
Oh.
comment, I have a question, but I know
Oh.
I can't ask questions.
Oh, sorry, I thought you looked like you were getting up
I
for,
can phrase it as a comment.
if you want to, why don't you come up here?
Let's phrase it as a comment. I did not come in to hear this gentleman speak at the onset, but I'm hoping that what is not being omitted from the discussion and the thought process here is whatever is being used to treat the water so it's potable and tastes better for humans, keep in mind that what might be good tasting for humans and okay for their digestive system may not be the same thing for the animals that are in there. That's the only thing, the first thing that came to my mind. And the plumbing. I think what was addressed prior to, one of the thoughts was tying into the city line and what would the cost be versus running a second well. And I believe the comment at that time was, let's try the second well. And when the question was asked, what happens if that doesn't work? I think Ellen's response was, I don't want to think about it now. The idea of contacting the businesses in that area, I was suggesting from way back when, because I think one of them in particular, who I can discuss with somebody afterwards, might be very interested in doing that, and that would be a cost saving. It might be more expensive initially, but I think in the long run, perhaps we'd have less problems. So, thank you.
Thank you, Cheryl. Anyone else for public comments? Edie?
This is my meeting with Ellen yesterday. As a lifelong resident of Woodbridge, I'm quite upset how things have changed over the past few years. This was a community where there was fellowship and respect for each other. I am here tonight to discuss with you my feelings how our government seems to be interested only in, interested only in the opinions of the Democratic Party. There is no representation for me and many others. The issue of the Country Club of Woodbridge was not a very controversial issue, as you have said. The problem is the way you have chosen to handle the situation. There have been meetings well attended by residents. Ideas have been duly suggested, not only verbally, but written down. I have attended all of these meetings. Preservation of the property was first and foremost at the meetings I attended. The only thing the residents have been privy to is selling some or all of the property. We know that bids were sent out. Answer to your bids have been received. An ad hoc committee was made up of volunteers, or were they carefully appointed? A lot of time and money has been wasted. 3 times the board has publicly at open meetings in Center Gym been told that condominiums and cluster housing are not wanted. At one open meeting, Toll Brothers was definitely a company that was not wanted. Consultants from Malone and McBroom were hired to look at the possibilities of use for the Country Club of Woodbridge. It appears that they have a serious connection with Toll Brothers. How interesting. At the last meeting of the Selectmen, November 26, 2014, Carolyn Wolf and Andrew Esposito reported that the ad hoc committee was ready to present to the Board of Selectmen their findings. Selectman Joe Dye asked what are the names of the 2 bidders. Carolyn Wolf said she could not tell him. He asked why, and she said she had been told not to give out that information. He asked by whom she was told. Lawyer Weiner jumped right in to answer, and Joe said, I am asking her, not you. Joe also said he was not interested in the fine details of the bidding. Susan Jacobs went into a very disrespectful rant while shaking her finger at Joe. Nothing was said to Susan Jacobs by you. That really took me by surprise. This was not the first time I have been present when Susan Jacobs has done this very same ranting and shaking her finger at Joe Dye. This is still a free speech country. Joe is an intelligent, polite, well-informed person, elected, not appointed member of the board. He deserves to be respected. At the special meeting December 3rd, 2014 of the Selectmen, I was dumbfounded as why you had a Woodbridge policeman out in the hall. You certainly have no respect for the kind of people you are supposedly representing. It was very insulting to the people you are supposedly representing. The first agenda that night was to appoint people to boards and commissions. You nominated Terry Gilbertson to 3 of the positions. When you asked Tony or Joe if they had a nominee, Tony replied no. Terry was approved by all voting. Next, you asked if there was any other nominees. Beth Heller nominated people for the next positions. When asked if Tony and Joe had anyone, Tony nominated people he had nominated before. Of course, only the people nominated by Beth Heller were voted in by the 4 Democrats. That seems to be the standard of how things are done in Woodbridge today. There is not a fair representation on the boards and commissions anymore. If we could only go back when Woodbridge was a nice place where everyone was represented. Before you asked the audience to leave because the board was going into executive session, you laid into Joe and Tony about the way they had asked questions of Carolyn Wolfe November 26th. Of course, you did not have anything to say to Susan Jacobs, who treated Joe Dye with disrespect. Many times I have seen Joe or Tony bring up a topic that concerns them and should concern all of you, but they are quickly ignored and things move on. The handling of the fire department fire pit, built with no permit and encroaching on the wetlands, was another situation that should have been handled by the Board of Selectmen, and things move on. What has been done about the fire safety at the center? I came before the Board of Selectmen because it was a disaster the day we had a possible fire and everyone had to leave the building. You never got back to me about the fire department grill and the senior center. What is Betsy Yagla's background? How was she appointed? I thank you for your time, and I'm Edie Lockyer from Baldwin Road. And I must say that after I read this, I had no discussion. Nothing would be said about it. I thought at a private meeting. I realize here that there is no comment. But when I have a private meeting, I expected that we would discuss, and I was told that we were not going to.
Anyone else for public comment?
Hi, my name is Roger Sherman, 5 Fairview Road, Woodbridge, Connecticut. I'm an independent, and this is not political for me. The handling of the Woodbridge Country Club negotiations. You go into executive session. I believe that it is fine at some points for the financials and things like that, but not even letting the town know who the 2 bidders are is not right. And when it's going to be made public, and I believe backroom deals are made. And when we bought the club back in 2009, there were several meetings, backroom deals. Okay, we bought the club for $6.9 million. Okay, and a lot of things were not made public. Okay, I went on my own and I went digging through the deeds. Okay, I saw the purchase of the $6.9 million. Also, there were supposed to be 2 houses along with that sale. I only found one of them. And one of them was in the deal, was sold to the town, okay? Which was immediately sold back to the club for $1. And then the club immediately sold it for $190,000 to a local attorney, Albert Annunzia of New Haven, which he still owns today. You know, those deals were not made public, and hey, I would like to know why, okay? Some of you weren't on the board at the time. Some of you were, okay? These are things that happens in these backroom deals, and they're not made public. I want to know what happened. $190,000 is a sweetheart deal for that house, the caretaker quarters directly next to the clubhouse, okay? Which, hey, Toll Brothers or somebody comes in to build condos, let's buy that extra piece there. Okay? That's going to be another really sweetheart deal for somebody. I'd like to have it looked into and find out why. If I missed the public record on it, let me know where to find it so I can look at it, or the rest of the public. I'm glad everybody's getting along today, and I hope we keep up and have some good work and get through this.
Thank
you. George Gearing, Crestview Associates. I believe everybody received copies of the Southwest Conservation District report. We seem to be going backwards. I don't believe anybody understands, or maybe we've had several meetings with Ellen, but then we've had, Jerry has been at a couple, but we seem to be going backwards, and I'd like to clear the matter up so everybody understands where we are. Number one, the Crestview ditch is not our responsibility. That was caused by a broken head wall, and curbing net was damaged, and it has never been repaired. There are 2 town employees, if we have to go further, who are willing to testify, yes, and it was they knew about it. It was known by the administration, or at least people in the Public Works Department. It wasn't fixed, and the silt came down and filled that ditch. They did a Band-Aid approach. They put in a large catch basin or whatever it is to catch the sand. All right. They finally fixed, and that have spoken with that employee. He finally fixed and corrected the situation up on Evergreen Drive, which solved the silt problem. There's been no silt coming down since it was fixed. The water's coming down clear. No more mud. Town hasn't had to come over to clean the road, and I don't know how since it was fixed. Now, they're allowing the sand that's in the retention basin is now washing down into the pond. And so Warren said, well, we'll build a couple more retention basins farther down. And I said, Warren, it's when they fill up, when that sand keeps washing down, it's all going to go into the pond. If we just clean it out and clean the ditch, there should be never any more problems. It's not a Crestview Association problem. All right, we're draining water from Elderslie. So, and we're getting water, that water from Elderslie also comes down that way. So it's not a Crestview problem, it's a town problem, and if it has to go to court, then it's going to go to court, and we're going to get it straightened away. Now, the Meadowcrest ditch is another situation. The Elderslie berm has let go twice. It's collapsed. Most of that silt is in the ditch right now, and it has not been cleaned out. And I understand the town now is taking care of the, I'm not sure if it's been replaced or what the situation is with the Elderly retention basin, but that was supposed to be part of the drainage system to hold back any salts or dirt that was coming down. I don't think that's happening now. I don't think it's been replaced. I think it's still in the state of collapse. So the silt is coming down. Now there's a pond after Elderslie, before it gets to Crestview. That pond is just about full. I think the town owns that pond. I think that's the property the town bought years ago to use as a possible exit, and they were concerned about contamination of that property because of the landfill. So the town owns that lot, but on that lot is a fairly large pond, which is just about full of silt. So it continues to wash down, and Mrs. Robinson, who has just departed for Florida, left me a letter that she's very much concerned. And when she and her husband bought that property, they were told the town would maintain that. Now she's getting water on her property, and she's concerned about it. And so the ditch right now is probably 3 inches deep. It used to be about 6 feet, and that's all silt. And most of that, I was chairman of the Wetlands Commission when the berm let go at Ellerslie the first time, and most of that silt is probably what's laying in that ditch. So, and we just continue to talk about it. But I think that the selectmen, I'm not sure if you even read if anyone has read the report. We spent the money to get this done, and it's pretty clear. It's supposed to be clean. Now, I realize now is the high water season, or the start of the high water season, so it's going to go another winter. Now, we've got an island that's stopping at the end of the ditch right now, and it's impeding the water that's getting out. So the water's now backing up. So, I made an offer. I said last time we'll be more than happy. Stop paying our taxes and let the town take the whole thing over, and then you can be responsible for it. But you can talk to DEP when they come in about the spillway, and you can foreclose on the property, and that's the end of it. And we can come after the town for our tax reductions if it gets any worse. But I don't feel that the $10,000 should be used to pay for the Crestview ditch. That's a town responsibility. I think the Meadowcrest ditch is maybe where the $10,000 should be spent. And I think it should be cleaned out. I mean, it's just washing, it's getting worse and worse. And we just keep dragging our heels. If poor Ed were here, I think it would have been done long ago.
Thank you, George.
All right? Thank you.
Kathy Wick, I live on Rimmon Road, and I wanted to ask a question about last week's special meeting. Residents who were not in attendance at last week's special Board of Selectmen meeting may not be aware that there was a police officer in the room. After we townspeople were required to leave the room, since an executive session was about to begin, there was considerable discussion in the hallway and outside about who had requested the police presence and why. So on behalf of those folks, I'm asking tonight, who did request the police presence and why was it requested?
Thank you, Kathy. We'll get back to you.
You'll get back to me? Okay. Well, we all were disturbed by this. One woman in particular, a lifelong resident of the town, said that in her recollection, many years, there had never been a police officer called to a Board of Selectmen meeting in Woodbridge. And I join her and many others who attended the meeting in taking offense at what can only be interpreted as an intimidation tactic. I would like to suggest that the best way to ensure civil, respectful behavior is to exhibit such behavior, not to squash alternative viewpoints and attempt to use the police to intimidate the public. Thank you.
I was told at that meeting that the town had been leafleted to turn out quite a few people, and we were concerned about the capacity of this room. You will note that in the meantime, we have checked the capacity, and we didn't know what the process would be if there were that many people here, and that was the determination that was made, to have someone here if there was the kind of turnout that I believe was hoped for. So that's that. Anyone else for public comment?
Thanks for those remarks. First Selectman Donald Salato, 3 Knollwood Road. I wasn't going to say anything until you talked about being concerned about the capacity. The town council, in one of his all too frequent stage whispers last week, was taking head counts of the room and said to certain members of the Board of Selectmen, well, there's 13 of your people here, and then there's 10 of our people. So I would say that somebody, most likely the person seated immediately to your right, was orchestrating the filling up of this room by getting teammates to this meeting. So that is a completely specious representation that you were worried about overcapacity. We have a fire marshal who takes care of overcapacity, not policemen, And in a further stage whisper by town council, who speaks far too often and way out of course at these meetings, when a woman, as we were leaving, spoke out because we were shushed, he said, "She's one of yours." That's the kind of division, when you get elected to the Board of Selectmen, Mr. Weiner, then you can address me.
That's not true. That's all I'm saying is it's not true.
Thank you. Anyone else for public comment?
My name is Maria Kane. I'm from 1891 Litchfield Turnpike in Woodbridge, Connecticut. I am impressed that there is already a draft for the plan of conservation and development. I admit that I have not read it in detail, but I looked at it, looked at it in a sort of like fast scheming. I noticed that there are, for a plan of conservation at this day and age, we should have very good recommendations or clear recommendations as to what the town is going to do with regards to climate change. All right, there's a chapter on sustainability, but, it doesn't really direct us properly or correctly, So I think the other thing is, like problems like ditches and how water runs around town and all that kind of stuff, that should be included and how the town should deal with that. To avoid problems like this in the Elderslie, and also there are also problems apparently in a neighborhood around Buttonwood Lane or Buttonwood Road. It's been an ongoing problem, and the town has not paid any attention to it. The other thing I wanted to tell you, and I think the town should know, I got a phone call from Town Planning and Zoning of Cheshire. I own property in Cheshire. And they said, "Mrs. Kane, there is a cluster home division that's being proposed next to your property." And I said, "That property is so small. How many cluster homes are they proposing?" "Oh, it's between 15 to 20, blah, blah, blah." But what struck me in the conversation, which I haven't really pursued right now because I have been very busy, but I intend to question it, was that the developer was Maloney and McBroom. I think the town should know that the people that we have hired to do our town planning and zoning, plan of conservation our plan of conservation and development is also a developer. I don't know if that's very clear to the townspeople, but we should know that. I think there could be a major conflict of interest. Thank you.
We're now at item number 8, Town Council's report. And the first has to do with the Beecher Road School construction project.
Yes, we spent a better part of today and yesterday talking to the State Board of Education about the Beecher Road project and the reimbursement that the town could be entitled to once the project is approved by the legislature. We're told today that the town's application has the support of the Board of Education, and we should be on their priority list for approval come this June in the legislature, which is very good news. We don't know exactly how much the town would be entitled to, but it's not an insignificant amount of money. The only thing that we need to do is, as you have in your packet, approve 2 motions for the Board of Education, and those motions have to be hand-delivered tomorrow to the State Board of Education because their package goes into the legislature on Monday. So that is the reason why you have the Emergency Management Performance Grant Authorization Resolution, and that's before you, and I would ask the board to consider approving that so we can get that to the State Board tomorrow and get on their priority list and hopefully get our grant to help with the cost of the project.
And I just want to clarify, if you all have the the agenda, I believe it's in the agenda that was filed, 8A is amend motions of November 9th. It should say 2011, not 2014. That was a typo, just so that's
Right.
clear. Jerry, I just want to make sure we have, it's the Woodbridge Board of Selectmen hereby amends its motion 2011 to include the following?
Yes.
And that's,
Yes.
okay, is there a motion to authorize this amendment to the motion?
So moved.
Second.
Any questions for Jerry?
The only-
Tony?
Just, so we're amending motions that were made 3 years ago. I wasn't here, I know that, so
Right.
what are the, what's the
The
material?
motion,
amendment?
basically, when the board authorized the project to proceed, there's certain language that the Board of Education needs to have before it will consider the application. The
And that
motions
wasn't-
that, this language was not in it in 2011,
Okay, so-
and this is the revised language.
So we're just furthering the intent of
Technicality.
the.
Exactly,
on a technical
exactly,
basis. in
right.
other words.
Right, apparently there was very specific language that was required, and it didn't exactly meet the
I was there,
requirements.
no recollection.
To Tony, this is basically the grant we were hoping for when we talked about the project, and we had a dollar amount in that we didn't count on, but we said we may be able to get a grant
Right.
upward of, I believe at that time was upward of 500,000, but some
Could be
number in
more.
between.
Yeah, that's
This is
correct.
the actual grant.
That's
and
correct.
We now have hope that we will be able to get
Right,
some, okay.
correct.
This is a very significant step in helping us be assured that we'll get the grant. There's another route to follow if we hadn't gotten this approval. If we don't get this approval, there is a second way, but this is much more secure for us. And I do want to say, in the comment period, that Senator Crisco was extremely helpful to us in doing this, and I want to thank Jerry very much. He has spent a tremendous amount of time to make sure we get this right. It hasn't been that easy with some of the state folks. There's been a little bit of back and forth, and the story wasn't always totally clear, but I believe it is now, and this will be great for us if it goes through.
Excellent.
Oh, any other discussion or questions? All those in favor?
Aye.
The next issue we have is AMR contract renewal, and AMR, as you probably know, has been servicing the town for the past 4 years, since 2011. Their contract is up as of January 1st, and the EMS Commission has been talking and negotiating with AMR over a period of time, and there was a meeting with the chairman of the commission. Tony was present, I was present, and Joe Hellauer, who's a new member of the EMS Commission, was also present, and a representative of AMR was there. And the meeting centered on the negotiations for the increases in the payments to AMR over the next 5 years. They proposed a contract for, an extension of the existing contract for 5 years. I think the commission felt that that was a little too long, and they were willing to commit to 4 years. And they initially had an increase over a 4-year period of approximately 14 or 15%. And we were able to negotiate it down to a total over the 4 years of 9.5%, which is in 2015 a 1% increase from their prior rates, in 2016 a 2%, and in 2017 a 3%, in 2018 a 3.5%. And after 2018, the town will have an option for an additional year at a price to be agreed upon by the parties. So we thought that was fair, and I think, I don't know if you have the exact numbers?
I do.
Yes.
Thank you.
Competitive
Well, that's
situation here, do we bid this out at all, or do we just negotiate with them every year and try to keep whatever increases are to a minimum?
It's a very good question. The practice with respect to the ambulance has been to negotiate with them and not necessarily to go out to bid, because it is such a crucially important service. And rather than automatically going out to bid, we follow the recommendations of the EMS Commission. If they are pleased with the service, and they've been extremely pleased, they have found the response times and the responses excellent. And so there doesn't seem to be a good reason to go out to bid for something this important that's working well for the town. So that's the process.
So the
we
commission is
followed.
basically monitoring
I
what the
think
pricing is
monthly.
and they
Betsy attends the meetings.
They meet quarterly, they go over response times, and they've been very pleased. They've almost all been within the contractual limits, and AMR could use some exceptions for weather and other things, but they have not even needed to invoke those exceptions to meet the contract requirements.
So I have no doubt about that, I'm not trying to step in the way, I mean, but, because I'm not involved in any of that, but just as a matter of, a black and white thought is, has the commission even accepted any bids from anybody else that may be competitive to AMR and looked at the competitive price? I mean, I don't know that AMR is the only one that can do this tremendous job, is all I'm saying. Maybe they are. I just don't know that, and I don't know that the commission knows that unless there's some kind of process to ferret that out.
It was also told to us that AMR has a certain license that is necessary to do this, and if we were to go with somebody else, there would be a procedure that we'd have to go to, I forget what agency in Hartford, Tony, do you remember? Public Health, maybe? I'm not sure who it is. To get the license transferred to the new entity, if there was a new entity. We were told that it is a pretty complicated process. I have no personal knowledge of that, but that's one of the reasons why the commission felt that they wanted to stay with AMR. And they are monitoring the response times, and they're superb, and they just didn't want to, this is a very important service for the town, and they didn't want to take the chance of maybe getting a little bit lower price, although that's not guaranteed, and giving up the significant service that the town has received over the last 4 years.
I don't either, I just don't know that that's a conclusion that can be drawn unless you get that information, and I haven't heard the information, but, listen, I'll defer to the commission, I'm not, it's clear enough that I don't know that, it seems there is an impediment to competition because of...
With that, again, I don't know how significant that is, that was just told to us.
All right.
Can I ask a semi-related only because it came up tonight? I remember during the discussion of the Lucas device when the firemen came and gave us a demonstration and they had actually purchased it, the fire association, because they were concerned or there was some delay maybe in whether AMR would be using it exclusively on trucks that come here. Do we know in the end, I did hear tonight that when AMR came out that these gentlemen had started the CPR process, that the Lucas device was used. Is it in the vehicles they're using exclusively now in Woodbridge as well?
Isn't it I don't know, is it in the medical,
Maybe
paramedic vehicle? I don't know where it is.
Maybe we can follow up with that, only because I remember the firemen none of us were sure that they were going to accept it.
In whatever, I don't know.
Right.
They did, but
But the fire association did,
Is it in the,
I think it's in the
They used it-
paramedic
they
vehicle.
used it at,
It is.
sorry?
It's on
Yeah,
Medic
that's what I'm
44.
Yeah, it is in the
Betsy
vehicle.
has the
So it's
answer.
in, okay.
Yeah.
It's on Medic 44.
Fire
And that's
department
just
paid
the
for
one
it,
that the
but-
fire association paid for?
Right.
That's the only one we have.
Yeah, that's the only one that the town has.
Because there was some
$10,000.
conversation on whether AMR at one point would be carrying them in their vehicles or,
They only have one, the
Yeah.
paramedic vehicle.
yeah, and then there was a question of whether
So I
or
think
not.
we've got the answer from Betsy.
All right,
Thank you.
thank you. Good enough, thank you.
So is there a motion to authorize the first selectman to sign the contract in accordance with the terms that Jerry and Tony have presented this evening?
So,
Second? Second. Any other questions or discussion? All those in favor?
Aye.
Good job. Thank you.
Okay, that's AMR. The last item on my report is 31 Enoch Drive. As you may recall, a few months ago, we talked about this property. And this is owned by the town, and it's up in the Round Hill section. We became aware that the town is obligated to pay for plowing. There's a private road that goes up to these lots. There's 6 lots, one of which is owned by the town, and it's an association that was formed at the time. There was a subdivision by the zoning commission when they approved the construction of these homes. And as a member of the association, by virtue of being a homeowner, the town has certain monetary obligations to maintain the driveway, the private driveway. And it's a long driveway, it's 600 feet. So we have been paying that over the last several years. This year, it is approximately $2,300, the town's share of the cost of the snow plowing. Plus, the road is in terrible disrepair, and the owners have voted in the association to re-asphalt the drive, which is anticipated to be another $3,000-4,000 cost to the town for this year. So I attended 2 meetings of the association and indicated to the association that I would bring this back to the Board of Selectmen to see what position you want to do. One of the obvious things that we could do, and we explored last time, is the possible sale of the lot. we learned, we haven't done a title search, but it appears that the town owns it right now, free and clear of any easements, conservation easements, with the exception of there's a slight portion of a greenway that runs at the top of the town's parcel, as you can see on a map. And I think it was originally purchased for the ability of the town to get to the greenway. And there's a major greenway above our lot that there's an easement on a lot above the town's property, which most people, all people for the most part, get to through that right of way. Practically speaking, our greenway is not necessary to get to the other trails, which people actually use. So it's up to the Board of Selectmen, but I would ask the Board of Selectmen what direction you want us to go. There is one individual who has expressed an interest in purchasing the lot. The town seems to me to get no benefit of it other than this greenway, and it's possible to sell the lot with a restriction of a restrictive covenant, conservation covenant, to protect no building on that greenway portion, although once we sell it, no one is going to be able to go, probably not going to be able to access it, but we could preserve the greenway. And the access is not necessary from the town's property because there's another way to get into it.
Jerry, this is a building lot even with the conservation easement?
Yes.
Is that right?
We don't, even if we did the conservation easement, there would still probably be a building lot, significant building lot. It would reduce the value of the property somewhat, significantly probably.
Well, maybe not
6.2 acres,
6.2.
the total parcel.
And I think it's important to know why we purchased it in the first place. Now, I heard you say you thought it was for this access.
I did look at the minutes, and Jerry has the minutes, you can take a look at it after the
Did we
meeting.
purchase it as open space, with open space funds?
We've checked that.
yeah.
I think it was.
Yeah, you checked that
it
with
was
Joe, right?
Bond funds,
Yeah, they were.
but we've checked with
They
bond
were.
council that we don't have to maintain it as open space.
Right.
I think, I don't know if it was just in the general bond package.
There was $1
I'm not
million
really sure.
bonding
It was bond.
to purchase open space, and the money came out, I think we paid $150,000.
Right.
I'm not sure, $150,000. It came out of that bond package.
It did.
But I have checked with our bond counsel, who reviewed all the documents and said there is no requirement that the town keep it as open space. We can sell it if we wanted to.
But
Also,
we
the-
did purchase it with open space bond funds as open space at the time.
What, is
I'm
that,
not
was that
sure.
bond?
I don't
open
think
space
so.
bond?
I don't know.
I'm not sure if it
That's
was
the part I
open
don't
space
know.
bond
Well, I think
funds.
we ought to know that.
It was
yeah.
purchased as
Purchased
open space.
property.
I want to just catch you all up on one other piece of this. The Conservation Commission has been looking at the issue. They have not voted on anything yet, but I spoke with Jason Morrill, and he said it's pretty clear that the Conservation Commission doesn't think this is a parcel that we need to keep for open space. They do think that the conservation easement will be important, and, we would have to do that. But this is not what they would consider, I don't want to put words in this, but it's open space, it's not important for the town, but they would like to see the proceeds go into maintenance of open space that we have, and anything left over still be used for open space. That's another decision we can make, but they don't have the opinion that this parcel needs to be preserved. for open
Two
space.
questions. They haven't officially voted on it.
But they have not
one way or the
officially
other.
voted.
And do
No.
we have an appraisal on this piece of property?
No, so that's the question tonight, whether we should go ahead and take the next steps, get an appraisal,
Right.
do the title check, and the next step so that we can be ready to sell it.
I kind of feel like we should get an appraisal.
Right.
Yeah, I have no
Good
problem.
idea.
You're not making a decision anything further other than just appraisal and the next steps like the title search, and that's a good idea.
We can do an appraisal. Keep in mind, appraisals are usually $3,000 if you get, other than a broker drive-by and taking a look at it, but
Yeah.
appraisal could be expensive. We
For a
know
building
that.
lot?
Huh?
For a building lot?
Yeah, it could be, it could be.
Well,
Whatever it
you let me
is.
know what quote you get, I'll get you.
A couple $1,000. What do you think?
I don't think so. I think less than that, but
But certainly
a
in the
thousand,
thousands,
whatever.
right.
But also as part of the due diligence, can we get an opinion letter from council?
Yes.
Yes, we can.
And if I can interject 1 second, part of my, so you're saving yourselves from a longer liaison report, part of my liaison report from the Conservation Commission was just this discussion. And I actually would like to tell you, because I was there, where they left this discussion was there is some question on whether or not the greenway and the trail itself does need some access here. And they were actually bringing in Mike Walters to the next meeting, which is December 18th. They are holding their meeting in December. And Mike's coming in, but so from what they understand, whether or not it's true, there may be some record here in Betsy Quist's office, just where it ended up, that actually shows exactly where, there's some dispute on where this greenway and where the access to it is, and they were trying to clear that up before they made their recommendation, which might change our minds on
Absolutely.
how much of it. So I just might want to say, before we do anything,
Before
and
we praise
authorize
it.
even a couple $1,000s, on the 18th, which is only
Next week.
next week, basically, they will be learning much more, and they have been doing more research, so we may want to just wait and see what their recommendation is, because that might make it a lot easier for us to
At
decide.
this point, waiting a week doesn't hurt.
That's fine, we can wait till the next meeting. Absolutely.
Just wanna give you that update.
Because if you do decide to market it, you're not gonna market it in the dead of winter anyway.
Right. Okay, so that's, we'll wait and hear from
Sounds
Council.
like we
That's
got a
helpful.
Good update. Thank you very much.
Good, thank you.
Next item is the town clerk's report, and I'll make a motion to accept the town clerk's report.
Second.
Any discussion or questions? All those in favor?
Aye.
Thank you. Item number 11 is the board meeting schedule for 2015. Is there a motion to accept the?
So moved.
Thank you. Is there a second?
Second.
Any questions or comments about
Is
this?
February 11th a holiday? That's the only question I have.
Didn't see anything. What-
Not for the town of Woodbridge.
It usually is a federal holiday.
It's a
February
state
12th.
holiday.
Why would February
12th is
It's
a
Lincoln's
state
birthday, I
holiday.
just didn't know if like that, everything's
But
closed on that day.
There was a,
I thought we went to President's
But-
Day.
yeah, we all went to President's Day.
Oh, okay.
But February 11th is a Wednesday.
No, it's a Thursday.
What day is it?
It's a day
It's a
during the
Wednesday,
week.
I'm sorry.
And February 12th is a holiday,
No,
or not a holiday, but even if it were, it's not the 11th.
No, Lincoln's birthday is 12.
Right.
The 11th is Wednesday, the day before.
So they combine.
The 11th
It's
is the day
February
we
12th.
have.
Okay, all right, that's where I was confused. Okay.
Anything else about these dates?
I'm busy.
I'll make a motion to approve this proposed agenda
Second.
schedule. Thank you. Anything else? All those in favor?
Aye.
Thank you. First Selectmen's report. Let's see, over the last month, we had the early bird solar workshop at the center gym. I think we had close to 100 people. It was very well attended, I think indicating the interest of the town in the availability of solar programs as well as home energy audits. Betsy Yagla and I toured White Knight Dental Implants, a new business that we have here in Woodbridge. And the most fascinating part of this is that some of the dental bridges and things, they create through 3D printing. It was fascinating. So it's nice to have a new business in town. I was at two senior center lunches, the Thanksgiving lunch sponsored by the police union and the holiday party sponsored by the Rotary. Tony was there. They were both just lovely events, extremely well attended. And aside from the thanking the police union and the Rotary for sponsoring these, which are just great events for seniors in town, and of course the human services people and the employees, the kitchen staff there, Elaine Marcuccio and Trish DeBudo, are just amazing. They do 4-star meals for the seniors, and they're really lovely. We've been meeting about the Small Cities Grant, which we talked about tonight. There have been the capital budget presentations. I was at the Beecher Road School Book Fair, which is very well attended. A lot of the children come in with their allotted money and have an opportunity to shop for books. It was great. And I attended the holiday reception at the Thomas Darling House. I know Beth was there with her mom. Again, they do a beautiful job, the Historical Society, and one of the choral groups from the high school was there. And unfortunately, I just barely missed them, but apparently they were better than ever. They were just terrific. Last night, I was at the very young Girl Scouts. They're called the Daisies. They're kindergarten and first graders for their service project. And Mary Ellen LaRocca and I were there accepting holiday baskets, and of course, they were adorable. That's the highlights. I just want to mention a couple of upcoming events. I want to remind everyone that on December 16th at 7 o'clock, We'll have the DOT presentation about its revised and reduced plan with respect to the exit 59 intersection. I think there's a lot of interest in that. I encourage people to attend. It's at the Morrow Sheridan School, 191 Fountain Street in New Haven. On December 19th, we have our holiday luncheon for employees, and December 22nd in the evening is our holiday reception for board and commission members. I hope people will make an effort to attend. So that's the report. Now,
Can I
Betsy?
just ask
Yeah.
it? I'm sorry,
Yeah,
can I
sure.
ask, but going back to Crestview, we've had it on the agenda and George spoke. And
Yeah.
I don't know if we're just, I think we just need to try to move that somewhere. So we mentioned getting
Bob Criscolo to come. That's, I think,
I mean, do we have some kind of time frame next month?
I took that as the next step, and he is prepared. I mean, he's already been there, so we'll have him at the next
So he
meeting.
can come in fairly soon and get us up to speed on
Yes.
that.
I think he can explain it to us.
Does he also, is he prepared to talk about the history and who's maintaining? I mean, I think that's important. And I mean, the issue here seems to be, as well as how much, it's who's responsible for this, right?
Yes.
And there seems to be some issues that are not necessarily reading a clear-cut contract or anything like that. There's some nebulous issues we have to determine.
We
who's
can
responsible for that.
we'll try to recreate that, and not to, it is not crystal clear. At least we have, in the meetings I've attended and the documents we've reviewed, it's just not clear what the past practice has been, whether it's been by some kind of agreement or just saying, okay, we'll help out this time. So we have not found anything, Jerry's looked, Tony's looked, that indicates a town obligation to do the things that are being requested. However, there is some indication that the town, there was some past practice of helping out. So it's not clear, and we don't want to set a precedent for other properties, so we're trying to find
Right, but at the
middle
same
ground.
time, we have to do what's fair and reasonable to these folks.
Correct.
So, and Bob though, will be prepared, I imagine, to speak about where this runoff is all coming from, these other,
I think so.
Yes.
other subdivisions
Yep.
and developments
So
in
explain
town
all
and
the
so forth,
technical aspects
so
of
we
it.
can get an idea of
Right.
whether or not these folks are subject to an inordinate situation because of other developments that we've
I think
allowed in town.
he'll speak to that.
Yes,
Okay.
yes.
So if he's prepared to speak to that, I was originally going to say, would it be worth it for us to ask somebody like Warren Connors to be here, because but maybe if Bob Criscolo is prepared to speak to the history of it, we wouldn't need Warren necessarily to talk about.
Warren would be helpful to speak of the history in terms of what has happened since he's been here.
So could we do that, maybe try to plan it
Sure.
where Warren
Yeah.
can be here? Great.
Yeah. Good idea.
Betsy?
Sure. So there's a couple events coming up that I want to make sure everybody knows about. The DOT meeting that Ellen mentioned, they'll be talking about their new plan for exit 59 to address safety and traffic flow issues. And again, that is next Tuesday, the 16th, 7 p.m. at Morrow Sheridan School, which is in the Westville section of New Haven. And the address is 191 Fountain Street. Human Services is looking for residents to adopt a family for the holidays. They're looking to help families in need, and if you give them a call, 389-3429, they can set you up with an adopted family. They'll be delivering holiday baskets on the 18th, so they're looking for all the donations to be in by the 17th. And again, the number is 389-3429. The other thing I want to mention is that the Ad Hoc Energy Task Force, Energy Advisory Task Force, is doing a lot of work with their Woodbridge Energy Challenge. Ellen mentioned the solar workshop in November. That was the kickoff to their whole program, and over the winter they'll be hosting workshops at the library about different energy topics to help residents understand how to save energy and save money. And those topics will include insulation, home energy assessments, and heating and cooling options, and also how to finance those options. And once those dates are set, that will be on the website. The other two things I mentioned, the DOT meeting and the holiday baskets, those are already on the website right now if you need more information or details. And the other thing is good news. This week we surpassed the 700 subscriber mark to the e-newsletter, so it's going well.
Good.
Great, thank you.
Thanks, Betsy.
Liaison reports.
I don't have a liaison report, but I'll just take this opportunity to wish my fellow selectmen a happy holiday season and a happy new year.
Thank you.
Thanks.
Same to you.
Thank you.
Back at
Okay, now everybody has to say that.
No, I just said back at you. Okay. I got short report. Oh, I'm sorry. Too bad, but I'll be quick, okay? On November 17th, I went to the Fire Commission meeting. There's some issues with Engine 9, which I know they were going to talk to Tony about. I don't know how that's been resolved. I'll find out next week at their meeting. The oil water separator, I guess they have to work on now, having a company come in and monitor that as well as Public Works. They're tied together. The chief went to an Ebola response meeting, and Truck or Treat happened. Since they talked about that, there were something like 2,500 people there. Do you think that was that many?
They
It was
said
a lot.
there were over 2,000.
It was crazy. It was just crazy. Let's see, Santa and Mrs. Claus are going out. They're coming to Woodbridge, I should say, December 16th and 17th.
Clear health.
Yeah, we're gonna take a truck. And there's also December 20th for those in TV land. Santa's gonna be at the firehouse from 12 to 3 for free, and you can come and have a bite to eat, and the kids can come and tell Santa what they'd like. They've had close to 2,000 man-hours reported through October of 2014 this year. And there were a couple of calls of note: brush fires, grass grill, fire on a porch, several MVAs on the Parkway, and a structure fire on Acorn Hill, which I think we talked about last meeting. Next meeting is Monday night. My best part, the Historical Book Committee. I guess you all got Woodbridge Events advertising the book.
With
And
the
I just-
logo on the front.
Well, it gets better, right.
Permissible.
Okay, here's the forms.
Order sheet.
I want to see them coming in. You all have to participate.
How many we have? Take 5?
Make copies.
Make your own.
Yeah, make your own, but
For the
at
record,
least
I
order one.
ordered mine.
Yep, I did, I
have
ordered
the
two.
official one.
I got two, because I wanted one signed by the committee members, so. Anybody else down there? I'll be so in the audience, and Stephanie has these in her office, and it's going to the printer. It's starting Monday, pieces as we're finishing, and the whole thing should be done by the end of next week. I'm ready to go, so we'll have them ready.
good.
These are pre-order forms.
Do I remember correctly, there will be a limited print, so you have to get your orders in now?
Yeah,
Last one is sold
absolutely.
out and you can't
Yeah,
get it.
so, get it done.
Price goes up.
I don't know about that. Town Plan and Zoning met on Monday, December 1st. We celebrated Pua's birthday, highlight. And there was a public hearing finally regarding the freestanding sign at 260 Amity Road, and it was approved. The board is continuing to work on the town plan of conservation and development, and I think they've tried to schedule some, I think they're public meetings. Do you know about this yet?
There's a public.
January
hearing.
26th and the 28th? What are those? It was hard to
Are those the
hear.
right dates? I know there was a
Those are the right
change.
dates.
It's January 26th is the meeting, and then the
Okay,
28th
I
is
had
like
two written down because I guess they were trying to
The
decide.
28th is a just in case.
Okay, all
But
right.
the main meeting is the 26th.
Is
And
that
they're
for the
also-
public?
Yes,
Yes.
public
Okay,
comment.
so,
And they're accepting,
Center Gym.
they are accepting public comment before then. If people want to write in, people should know that it's, I think they're welcoming public
This
comment.
commission, amazing, they meet 3 times a month lately, but they're discussing, we're continuing to work on the regulations, which is, we're still doing that, so it's amazing. And they meet on January 5th, and I think that's my report, and happy holidays to everyone. Okay?
Okay, I'll start with recreation. They met on December 1st. They had a special date there because their typical meeting is the 4th Monday of the month, which would have put it right around the holiday season. And they next meet on January 26th. There was multiple discussions. The first one was about some of the omissions and additions that they perceived from the 10-year plan, and they were going to be in contact with Jeff Kaufman about making some changes and adaptions to that, and Malone McBroom as well. I think there has been some communication, but there's been no finalized report on that, but they were hoping to make some changes before the final draft, some things they felt that needed to be addressed. Then another discussion was about the pool and timing of the pool. The pool is like an ice skating rink as far as the hours are very hard to come by. So Beecher Road School had a necessity for more time needed for their programs because maybe there's a little bit of an increase in the class sizes. And so a compromise was discussed and handled, and suggested plan of action was taken, approved unanimously by the commission, so that the adjusted time will affect some of the rec program. Time-wise, they'll have to give a little bit on that during the school year, so that Beecher will have a little more time for the students to run their programs. So a nice compromise was made there. Motion was passed unanimously for the town, by recreation, to ask the town to remove all paperwork still in the CCW building. So I think we've had a small discussion about that before, but they did pass a motion to ask us to remove all paperwork. There will be 4 concerts next July. Every year it's depending on how many Tuesday, Wednesdays there are in the month. The road race had a net profit of over $1,500, which was amazing because it poured raining. And they also unanimously approved a $4,000 donation to be made to Human Services for the food and fuel program, which was fantastic. The skating rink was sealed and fenced and should be in good shape for the coming winter over on the Fitzgerald track. And policies and procedures were continuing discussion was had. They were still making some adaptions, and they hope to have more review and hopefully be able to make recommendations to the town, maybe by the end of next meeting or something.
Thank you.
And that's recreation. I'm going to jump up. Conservation wasn't long because you basically heard the bulk of it, which was the property discussion of 31 Enoch Drive. But there was also Roger Harrison's resignation was acknowledged and accepted. There was a group of scouts at the Conservation Commission. They were coming to see some public meetings. You may have seen them at other meetings. And it was quite a large group, and it was a great thing to see. So the scouts were there with their scoutmasters and were allowed to be participant as far as public comment goes. And so that was interesting and well received. And then the only other thing they did was a possible winter trail walk was discussed, and more to come. Coopop did not meet. The meeting was canceled from December 2nd, and they will next meet in January. That's it.
Thank you, Tony.
Happy holidays to all my fellow members.
Thank you. I forgot that.
Joe and I have communicated about this. Joe has not been going to liaison meetings, doesn't think it's appropriate, or I'm not sure.
Well, I'll state that. You can just reassign me if you want. I'll state my own position.
I do think that it's important, we get important information from the boards and commissions, and I think they count on it. So Susan will be taking over library, Lawrence is taking over inland wetlands, and I will be taking human services. And I have a brief report from the December 1st Human Services meeting. They have holiday baskets. 28 households in Woodbridge received food baskets, and Boy Scout Troop 63 and 907 sponsored a food drive to replenish the pantry. Area on Aging mini grant for $5,000 was submitted to fund 2 cultural and educational programs for seniors. The holiday fair was very successful. The total profit was over $4,000. And they wanted to be sure you know about the update on their volleyball tournament. 93 students attended. $365 was collected and will be donated to the Eldridge Family Fund to assist the family with expenses due to their son's recent accident. So, nice report from them.
So since you asked.
Go ahead.
Yeah, my position, I stated it before earlier on, and it was essentially rejected, which is fine, but it's not that I don't think they're appropriate. They're very appropriate, the liaison, people from the board going to the meetings. I think it's not an effective use of resources. I think it's not an effective way of us getting reports from the committees and the boards and commissions who I think would be better served, or the town would be better served to have them come before us 3-4 times a year. We could get to know these folks. We could ask them questions. We don't have to get a report at 8:10 or 9:55 when our eyes are glazing over. And I don't want to challenge anyone to recite what any of these reports were today, but I doubt very seriously there's a big retention level of what gets reported back. And also, it's open to the public. If those, for instance, Human Services, if Mary Ellen came here 3 or 4 times a year, told us what's going on, told us what concerns she would have, we could ask her questions. And rather than go to all these other meetings, as liaisons to all these other meetings, perhaps the Board of Selectmen could reinstitute the second meeting every month. We could do some strategic planning. We could do things like, rather than have the CCW ad hoc, we could have been that ad hoc committee and had that second meeting. That's all. I just think it's a terrible, ineffective use of resources. So for that reason, I don't go to that, and I don't make reports. So.
I just will add, I know Joe had raised this early on in our tenure here, and this was all on the record, I reported before. I did look into the suggestion and met with just about all the chairs of the boards and commissions, and concluded at the time, based on their input as well, that this was an effective means, and we're continuing with it, and now we have all the boards and commissions covered, which I think is very important. And also, just to make clear, of course, to anyone who doesn't know that the public is always welcome at the board and commission meetings, whatever they may be. So now we have everyone covered.
Can I just ask one follow-up?
Yes.
We haven't had an Economic Development Commission report, liaison report, in quite some time.
Yes, I reported at the last meeting, and I should mention there has not been a meeting since
Okay,
then.
that's
Yep,
fine.
I should have said that.
wanted to-
The meeting was canceled.
Motion to adjourn? Or did you have something more to say?
Go for it.
Motion to adjourn.
Is there a second? Happy